All right. Well, in the interest of time and being timely, and you really are going to be enjoying this panel. I'm Doris Mold, and I am the co-CEO of Annie's Project, and I welcome you to our final program for our 20th anniversary celebration. Today, we have an outstanding panel of just interesting and knowledgeable and women of achievement and so many more things. And we're going to be talking about growing our future, perspectives on Annie's Project in the next 20 years. So we've had 20 terrific years, and we're looking forward now to see what they think the next 20 years will bring. And our panelists are Dr. Karisha Devlin, who is my colleague as co-CEO. We have Ruth Hambleton, Annie's Project founder. Cassie Johnson is joining us, and she's a facilitator and also works for Central Kentucky Ag Credit. Amber Roberts is on our advisory committee, and she chairs that advisory committee, and she also works for Farm Credit. Madeline Schultz is our Annie's Project Board of Directors president, and she heads up Women in Ag program. And Marji is like, well, she goes without really needing to be introduced. So many of you know her from the board of directors, and she's also chief operating officer at AgriSompo North America and president of AgriSompo and International. And many of you know her as the founder of Annie's, not Annie's Project, of FarmHer. Our founder of Annie's Project is also with us, Ruth Hambleton. So I'm going to turn things over to Marji, and we'll get this show on the road. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, welcome, everybody. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Doris. I'm thrilled to be here today. Annie's Project is something that has been near and dear to my heart for a long time. And through all of our FarmHer years, when I would go to farms, a lot of the discussion would be around who they are, what they do, and how they learn and grow, right? And Annie's Project came up more than I can tell you. And so it is an extremely important asset out there. And so supporting, educating, connecting women in agriculture is near and dear to my heart, and glad to be able to do that with these wonderful panelists today. So with that, I'm going to ask the room to go around and introduce themselves, and starting with Ruth in the upper right-hand corner. If you want to start, we'll go through introduction.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Ruth Hambleton, the founder of Annie's Project. Annie is my mother. Spent 31 years as an extension educator with the University of Illinois, Farm Business Management and Marketing. And these last 12, 13 years, I have been working to build the program Annie's Project through the nonprofit.
Wonderful. Up next, Karisha, why don't you jump in?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karisha Devlin, and I am co-CEO of Annie's Project along with Doris Mold. And in addition to that, I farm with my husband. We have a row crop operation in Northeast Missouri.
Wonderful. Madeline.
Hi, everyone. I'm Madeline Schultz. I work with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, and started with Annie's Project in that capacity about 15 years ago. Today, I'm a member of the board of directors and serve as the president currently.
Thank you. Amber, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Amber Roberts. I'm lucky enough to get to work with the folks on our advisory committee for Annie's Project and chair that this year. And then I also work with a farm credit based out of Washington and get to provide economics education to farmers all across the Western U.S.
Thank you. And Cassie?
Hello, everyone. My name is Cassie Johnson. I am from Winchester, Kentucky, originally from Northwest Iowa. and I am a state facilitator for Kentucky, coordinator and facilitator for the state of Kentucky. We run a purebred Red Angus operation, and I am also the marketing coordinator for Central Kentucky Ag Credit, partner of Farm Credits.
Wonderful. As you can see, we've got a great lineup here today. So our questions are gonna, as Doris said, center around where Annie's project has been and where Annie's project is going. The organization just is fresh off of a 20-year celebration and a gathering of people who are stakeholders in Annie's project. And so I think the momentum is high at this point for how we're going to proceed into the future. So to kind of lay the groundwork, Ruth, I'm going to start with you. And as I ask questions, I'm going to direct them at specific people. However, any of you feel free to jump in if you got something to add, please do. So Ruth, I think we should start with the foundation. You mentioned that you're the founder of Annie's Project. It's named after your mother. Can you tell us a little bit of the why behind Annie's? Why did you found it? Why do you see a need for this?
The why of Annie's Project is the focus on the farm and ranch women, their unique learning styles, and their need for education to improve their decision-making skills and help them enjoy and control the assets that we call farming. I was very fortunate to be in a position in my life where a lot of skills came together for me, where I had a background in farm management and decision-making. I come from a farm. I had my mother to serve as a role model for me. And just, you might say, the right ingredients came together at the right time for this program, Annie's Project, to pop out.
And it absolutely has served such an important role. And I see that so many times, Ruth. I think it's interesting you said the why behind women learn differently, and maybe women in rural communities and farming families, right? There's a lot of layers there. And I think it's such an important aspect to meet that group of people where they are. So so glad that you had that inspiration and that space in your life to be able to do that. So Karisha, up next, gonna kick it over to you. If you could change one thing about Annie's Project today to create a more successful organization tomorrow, what would that be? You see a lot of the inner workings of the organization.
That's a great question. The first thing that came to my mind is our capacity. We're in 38 states and one U.S. territory right now, but there's still, other states for us to reach. We get a lot of requests for classes. So some of those requests are from states that Annie's Project isn't in yet. And then some are from states that we do have a presence, but there may be limited facilitators in that state, and there's, people have only so much time. So, if we could wave a magic wand, just having increased capacity to meet the demand that's out there, and to also increase the resources in order to do that.
Yeah, as I was going through my years with FarmHer, I will get the conversation sometimes of, well, when do you think this work will be done? And I think the answer is it's never done. And there's always learning, right? There's always opportunity out there. And I think where Annie's is poised, there's been a lot of great work done. But as you said, there's a lot of potential in how we continue to spread that. So great. And again, anyone else, feel free to jump in if you've got anything you want to add onto this, because I want it to be a conversation, absolutely. So, Madeline, you have spent the better part of almost 2 decades focusing on women in agriculture, right? Through your role at Iowa State, through your involvement with Annie's Project. When I think back to women in agriculture, I think you're one of the first people I met in this space that was clear and evident and working hard to change the trajectory, right? And so, what do you think one of the biggest challenges Annie's has had in the last 5 years? And how do you see Annie's Project progressing from your standpoint as the board president?
Well, thank you, Marji. Annie's Project is successful truly because of our national network of facilitators. And those folks really look to Annie's Project to help them meet the educational needs that they're seeing in their communities. So I think that one of our biggest challenges is helping Annie's project facilitators feel supported and have the resources they need. So an Annie's project 18-hour course can be transformative for the women who participate. And that's because it's highly interactive and highly technical. We're talking about a lot of different financial aspects, legal aspects, a lot of very technical information. So because of this, it can be challenging for facilitators to manage those courses, especially when they're being asked to do more with less time. And when we have a lot of new educators and facilitators coming on who may not be as experienced. So over the next 5 years, I feel that we can overcome this challenge by aligning our financial resources with our goal and actually strategic priority of supporting our facilitators. And, you know, I'm hoping that we can have more professional development opportunities, more resources to help them manage their courses, as well as curricula that is flexible, up to date, and available. So that's really one of the big things that I look forward to in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. Well, as a follow-up on that, to you, Madeline, and anyone else, please feel free to jump in. Do you see the needs changing from a curriculum standpoint in the farming communities?
Well, I'll start by just saying that the core curricula of Annie's project continues to be excellent and meet the needs. And so I feel very strongly that we have a good base. It's focused on risk management and business management. And it's very adaptable across, you know, different kinds of commodities, different kinds of farming. So the base is there. That's excellent. And then I know in Iowa, we have, you know, 10 different kinds of Annie's inspired programs that we're offering because people are just asking for more on financial management, more on estate planning, more on grain marketing, that kind of thing. So the base is strong and there's a lot of opportunities for those Annie's inspired courses.
Absolutely.
And to weigh in, Marji, at the national level, we do have other curriculums besides that original Annie's, what we're calling Annie's Project 101, the original 18-hour course that Madeline is talking about, kind of that firm base. But we have one that focuses on farm succession, estate transition, business planning called Managing for Today and Tomorrow. And then we also have a financial curriculum, Know Your Numbers, Know Your Options. And curriculums in general is something that we're looking at really heavily as we move forward, because we are getting a lot of questions for other types of information. Other segments of agriculture are asking us for more information. We get a lot of folks that are in more of the urban agriculture settings now, and that they have, you know, a different set of needs that they're wanting resources and information for. So as we're moving forward, one of our goals is to continue building on those curriculums, not only to help our facilitators when they're delivering them, but also to help the women that we're trying to reach.
And, you know, one of the great things about Annie's project is the fact that, you know, as facilitators, we have that core program that we can follow. But one of the things that I noticed is that when we would have our marketing class, we weren't talking about how to market grain. We were talking about, they wanted to learn how to do marketing. So they wanted to learn how to design an ad or steps to creating a website. And we were able to kind of to go that direction with them, just from communicating with the attendees. And, you know, that's one of the good things, is that you can be a little bit flexible to help those that are attending.
Absolutely. Everyone's got a different need based on where they're at with their operation, maybe regionally, right, with the crops that a region might see more prevalent. So that flexibility matters. So Cassie, I'm going to stay with you unless anyone else had an addition to that question. Okay, so Cassie, as a facilitator yourself, what brought you to Annie's project? What in your background or in your life brought you here, and what keeps you here? What keeps you engaged?
Well, I actually was a attendee. So my story is, and every time I tell it, I get emotional because this is how much Annie's project means to me. So my father was killed on a farm accident, and it was shortly after the funeral that actually our extension agent came up to my mom and said, we have this program called Annie's Project, and I think it would be really good for you and Cassie to come to. And so we went to it, really not knowing what to expect, what to get out of it. And I mean, just for example, the very first night we did the real colors personality test, and it was just a warm up and an introduction for everybody else to get to know each other. But what my mom and I learned about each other was we always knew we never saw everything the same way. We always looked at everything differently. And because of the real colors, we were able to see why we looked at stuff differently. And so Annie's project to us as attendees not only helped us better understand how to farm and how to, do the fundamentals and reassure us, but it kind of gave us a backbone also, because it gave us the confidence as females to be able to stand up and know the answers to the questions that we had, or know how to communicate with other people in a more male driven world. And especially, I mean, that was 10 years ago. So times are changing, but yeah, it was still pretty male driven and still kind of is. And so even though we did real colors, it still didn't work out for mom and I, and my family decided to move to my husband's home operation in Kentucky. And when I took on, or actually when I was getting interviewed for the position with Ag Credit, they were talking about wanting to diversify, and they wanted to reach out to the small, the minority, the beginning farmers. And for me, it just was an easy go-to that Annie's project could do exactly what they wanted that to do. And so I looked into becoming a facilitator. With the help of Doris and Karisha, became a facilitator, became the state coordinator, and we've been, it just comes full circle, because when you take the class and you know what people can truly get out of it, and then to be able to facilitate the class and be able to help those people that you see that need that little push or that little boost of confidence or reassurance, it kind of completes the circle. And there are a lot of women, even if they don't know it, that really could use a course in Annie's project.
Absolutely. Learning is lifelong, right? And farmers are businesses, and things are always evolving and changing. And so how you can continue to bolster that for yourself, I mean, that's how you find successful ways forward. So I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. It does make a difference. What you all do makes a difference every day in people's lives, and that is absolutely wonderful. So,
yep.
Amber, going to you. As we talk about the needs and roles of women in agriculture changing, how do you think Annie's project will adapt to continue to educate and serve, right? I think agriculture is one of the fastest changing landscapes that there is. Every day in the news, there's something new coming out, some new technology or some shift, and there's a lot of changes in ownership, right? So how do you look at that?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Marji. I think when we look forward at some of the changes that we're going to see, Annie's project is already talking about them. We're already thinking about those needs. They have built into the curriculum things to allow for an Annie inspired beyond just that traditional 18-hour course. And even within that 18-hour course, you heard, as the other panelists had said, there's flexibility, right? We are talking about the core foundations of risk management, which will always be there. But there's that 6th session where you can talk with your cohort, your class, and ask them, what are our needs? What do we need? As we look into the future, I do see a few needs arising that I think Annie's project, we're having these conversations, we're getting equipped, and we're thinking heavily about urban agriculture. We've already heard it mentioned on this call, continues to grow. And as our population continues to grow and urban agriculture expands, and we see cities continuing to expand, it's an issue that we're going to have to think through. You talked a little bit about an aging population, the silver tsunami that's coming. As baby boomers, they first started to retire in 2011, and every single day we have about 10,000 more retiring. Now, for farmers, most farmers aren't the average baby boomer, right? They don't hit 65 and say, I'm done. They want to farm as long as possible, but that transition is going to come. And as that transition comes, I think we're in a really interesting spot where we're going to see more and more women entering and taking over those farm operations than we ever have in the past. And I think Annie's project is thinking about that, not just about those new and beginning and how do we, provide education, provide empowerment, provide a network for them, but also for those ladies that have been in agriculture for a long time and maybe lose a spouse, lose a parent, and now their farm dynamics are transitioning and they need support, additional education to move that forward. And then lastly, leadership is, I think, something that we'll see and continue to talk about. Having that network of women is super empowering. As you heard Cassie say too, one of the best things about Annie's project I've seen is it helps women to kill the just. I'm just a farmer's daughter, I'm just a farm wife, and really empowers them to be able to see, no, I do so much on this operation. And so women will continue in the next 20, 30, 40 years. We'll see more and more women in agriculture step up and take on leadership roles. We'll see more women in cooperative boards. We'll see more women on their advocacy. We'll see more of a need, and we'll see more opportunities for it, because in the past there have been restrictions, and it's been tougher for women to be able to get those positions, even if they're ready and they're able to do it. So I'm excited to see, and I think probably in the future we'll see more of Annie's continuing to support women going into those leadership roles and providing them with the guidance, with the knowledge that they may need to really be able to thrive once they're in there. So a ton of exciting things going on into the future, and also a testament to all that Annie's has done over the last 20 years, right? That we now are in this position where we get to continue to think about what the next 20 looks like and how we support those changing needs. Because like you said, Marji, every day there's new things, there's AI, there's technology, there's this aging baby boomer population. There's more and more women graduating. In fact, I think we're now over 50% from ag colleges are women with bachelor's and master's. So how do we, continue to provide a network, provide education, provide empowerment to those women, so we can really come to be the force that we'll, I think, see in the next 20 years.
Absolutely. And this is just one aspect, but we got a question about this, and I want to make sure to bring this up as we see roles changing. And Amber, to reiterate on what you said, when there are more women that are empowered to step into those leadership roles, that's great. But having the support to remain in those roles is absolutely essential and important. And not just remain in those roles, but to excel at those, right? Like how do we turn the dials kind of behind the scenes to give ourselves that push to say, I can do this, I am the leader here, and to show that confidence. And Annie's absolutely plays and will continue to play a huge part in that. But one of the questions that came up as we talk about changing landscape is for properties in preservation. So thinking about the future and how farms are passed on, right? We know that there's more women than ever that are in the space of inheriting farmland, inheriting farms. and how we support that, and them thinking about how they transition and then beyond, right? So Ruth, I'm going to toss this over to you. What happens in the future when there's no farmers in maybe a family to continue farming that land?
That's a good question. And this is one of my favorite areas that we deal with are the women landowners, the women who have inherited these assets. One of the things I find with them is they don't quite understand the extent of what they have, how valuable it is. They're maybe not interested in it, so they want to get out of it or something. I really would like to encourage women that if farm assets are in your portfolio, be sure to do everything you can in your power to keep them there. And this is where we get into women leasing land, women leasing agriculture assets. I think, Karisha, you've done some work with this, with some of the women there in Missouri, but just that knowledge of how to negotiate a lease, how to keep a relationship going with a good farmer who will farm the land according to the way you would like it to be farmed. But one of the things I want to preserve in a woman's portfolio is that idea that I own land. It's a precious resource. I think more precious than gold myself, but I could be a little biased. And just maintain that's something that she can also pass down to those who are following her.
Yep. There's so many different ways to look at this, but it is an asset and it's an important one. So Annie's ability to educate and lift up and help women see the opportunities in front of them, I think is absolutely going to be important as we move forward. So Ruth, I'm going to stick with you. So thinking about the goals that Annie's has in front of us and the strategic areas of focus that we know that this group has in educating and continuing to evolve and growing in that aspect. What are some of the resources that you think Annie's will need to make that happen?
I love this question. Marji, thank you so much for asking. I'm going to consider this my wish list, okay? So just
go for it.
Bear with me. All right, so I have identified 3 different capitals. There's human capital, social capital, well, actually 4, financial capital, and technology capital. So let me start with the human capital. I would like to see at least one program coordinator in each of the states, territories, and foreign partners. And for each program coordinator, I would like to see them work with 4 or 5 facilitators like Cassie there. On the social capital, I want to dive into all the different cultures where women have a specific role in those cultures. Under the, okay, so with the human capital, the social capital, I would like to see 2,000 to 3,000 Annie's Project enrollment each year. And then in order to get that done, we have a reputation of about $300 per person who enrolls in the course. That would mean we would need about $900,000 in annual income. Is everybody taking notes here for me? Okay.
Scribbling it down fast over here.
Okay. And then technology, the social media has absolutely taken over, especially the young generation growing up. And I'm not sure what the terminology was, Amber, you used with us, silver something. But yeah, that social media is so important for that next generation that's coming up. And so I would like to see us really learn how to master that and have the stuff that it takes to make meaningful clips, videos, to get our story out, our points, our educational points across in that short clip that this next generation seems to be really valuing. So those are my resources. That's my wish list for the future. I know we've got 38 in one territory now, so we're close. I'd like to see that foreign market open up where we have some international audiences, different cultures, almost $1 million in revenue, and that ability to just catch everybody's attention with that social media.
I love that vision. I'm a storyteller at heart, and just listening to Cassie's story, right, of how it affects one person and how that one person can go on to affect so many more people. Annie's has that ability. And so harnessing that ability to tell that story even better is absolutely near and dear to my heart. So thank you. Thank you. I love your vision here. And everything needs resources, right? Everything is absolutely essential. And so as Annie's navigates how that income comes in so that those resources can be built is absolutely important. So, okay, let's see. Up next, Cassie, how significant is the need for networking and connecting with other women in ag? And should that be a continued focus? And I think you probably answered a little bit of this with your question before, but what do you see with the classes and that you're engaged in those networks that women are building?
Oh, it's absolutely awesome. If they don't connect via Facebook within the first 3 meetings, they're probably already creating a personal Facebook group for them to communicate in. And the reason it's so important is it hits on so many levels, because not only is it important because you already have it's like a trust group. You have your group of people that you know, when you enter that room, you know that everything that happens in that room stays in that room with those people. And for you to be able to build a group and a network of people that you can rely on, it means a lot, because in the world we live in, everything is out in the open and always public. But also on just the level of being able to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. For example, in the very first group, Annie's project that I attended, we had everyone in there, from somebody who hadn't been on the farm for 20 years. Their parents were getting old and they decided to come back to the farm after working off the farm all their life. We had somebody else that was 98 some years old, and she just wanted to attend the class to listen to everybody else's story. And having such a variety of people in there allowed for so many stories that were educational to be told, from, you know, the 98-year-old woman and all the stuff that she had gone through in her life, and how she survived, you know, the death of her husband and what she did to keep the farm going, to the, you know, the off the farm person that was, you know, wanting to come back, and how she could incorporate herself and her husband back into the farm without taking anything away from her parents that were still alive and there. It's something that I don't think you realize how important it is until you've actually been a part of it. And the connections, I mean, Madeline was one of my first connections at a state level. And just to know that I have somebody like Madeline that is full of knowledge and resources that I could call and ask for help at the drop of a pen, it gives you or me a little bit of security. And I think that at anybody's point in their life, they need that. And I think that that's exactly what Annie's project brings to each group, without them even realizing that that is what they're going to get out of it in the end.
Yeah, it's so important to have someone you can go to with those questions that make you appear really vulnerable, that, you know, the world, we want to show up and say, we know this, we got this, we know what we're doing, right? But
right.
I don't know that anybody ever truly understands all of those, right? And so those networks are huge, huge, huge. So I love that aspect of what Annie's project does. Thank you for your input there. So Karisha, can you tell me about maybe a story, some alumna of Annie's projects that sticks with you? Someone that on the days where you are exhausted and, you know, trying to push through, that you go, this is what fills my cup up. This is why I'm here. these are the purpose behind Annie's for me. Do you have one of those stories?
I do, and that's a great question, Marji, and it's actually a hard question. It's like somebody asking you to pick your favorite child, because I've heard so many of them over the years. But in reflection on it, I actually thought of a woman that has been on my mind a lot over the last few months. And I met her 6 years ago when I was working on my dissertation, and I ended up going and interviewing her, and she was a part of my research. But I had the opportunity to go visit her and sit down and talk to her in depth. And her name is Julie. And at that time, she farmed with her husband and father-in-law. And she had always been involved in her farm throughout her marriage. But the opportunity had came up for her to come back to the farm 100%. And because her father-in-law was slowing down, and he's retired now, but she was coming in and taking a larger role. And she had started taking Annie's Project classes prior to that. And she continued. She's taken so many of the different Annie's Project courses available in her state. But during that time, as her knowledge grew and what she learned, and her experience in Annie's Project courses opened up a lot of channels for her, both on and off the farm. But Annie's Project also taught her not to be intimidated by things you don't know, to ask those questions. And it's okay to be a little scared if you're starting out doing something by yourself that you've never done. And just to remind yourself that everybody starts out as square one. Even the men out there, they have to start from somewhere. They start learning from scratch. And one of my favorite memories of our conversation was sitting with her at her kitchen table, and she kind of put her hand down on the kitchen table, because that was their boardroom, that was their board table. And she said with a lot of pride, like, I have a seat at this table now. It's not a courtesy seat. I have a seat at this table, and they come and ask me my opinion and my input on making decisions for our farming operation. And just seeing the pride that she had in that, and that ownership, and how Annie's Project had been part of that, really impressed upon me, and gave me all those warm, fuzzy feelings about being involved in Annie's Project. And another thing that really impressed me about her is her actions to pay it forward. And she started with her own daughters. She had 2 daughters, and they were that future generation on the farm. And she shared with them everything that she was learning in agriculture. She has one daughter that I know came back to the farm now, and is going to be that farming legacy for them. But she told her daughters the sky was the limit for women in agriculture, and that they can do anything that those boys do, and just really empowered her daughters in the choices that she made. Even the daughter that's not came back to the farm is involved in agriculture in another way, because she wanted to give them a good role model, and she wanted them to have somebody to emulate. And one of the great things about Julie was that she didn't just stop with her daughters. She became a role model for other young women in her community, and just serving as a mentor to them, to those that were interested in agriculture. And she's someone that I mentioned that I've thought about her the last few months. I've had a big change in my career. This summer, I stepped away from a 20+ year in extension with University of Missouri Extension to focus full-time on Annie's Project, and to come back to my farm full-time. And so this fall, when I had a bigger role in harvest than I've ever had before, and I was put in a few situations that really did intimidate me and make me a little nervous of things that I haven't done before, I thought about Julie and our conversation, and how that it's okay, to be intimidated. It's okay to be a little nervous, but everybody starts somewhere, and I did it. And I didn't, nothing was harmed in the process. So that was a huge win for me, and a confidence boost for me. So when I think about Julie and all of our other women alums out there, I think one of the best things about Annie's Project is women empowering women and helping other women to pay it forward. And I think back to Annette Fleck, Ruth's mother, and unbeknownst to her, Ruth, all those years ago, she was laying the groundwork.
Mhm.
And you watched her and you picked that up and you started paying it forward. And then, you know, everyone that's on this panel today and so many of our facilitators, over 900 facilitators across the country, has continued paying that forward. And our alums are continuing to pay that forward, over 19,000 now. So that's really exciting. So for me, my passion is to make sure that all women know the sky is the limit for you. And that no matter what role you want to have in agriculture, Annie's project here is here to support you in that.
I love that. Thank you.
Great
You know,
story.
I wonder if Julie knows that you're talking about her today. And I say that because she may not have any idea that she's had such an impact on other people, but each and every person on this screen and every person that's joined this call and beyond, there's always somebody watching each of us, right? It might be our 5-year-old child, it might be the people that we work with, you name it, but there's always somebody watching, and that's an opportunity. And I'm so glad that you had the ability to observe Julie through her growth process. Okay, so we're talking about the next 20 years. And Madeline, can you talk to me about what the strategic goals are for Annie's? I know there's been a lot of work done from all of the different stakeholders within Annie's to define what these strategic goals are.
Thanks, Marji. The strategic goals are really important to the organization because they really help guide our decision-making processes. So I mentioned earlier about supporting our facilitator network across the nation, and that's part of a strategic goal to really build and strengthen our networks. So one of those networks is our facilitators. Another one of those networks is our Annie's Project alumni. And so one of the things that we did during this 20th anniversary year was to host a conference and invite alumni to that conference, which we did in October. So that's just one of the kind of examples of how we're using these strategic priorities to initiate some activities and include alumni in our work. So another thing that we did with the network is we created an organizational advisory committee to just really bring new expertise and creativity to Annie's project. Amber is our current chair of that committee. So thank you very much, Amber, for your leadership there. So another strategic priority we have is designing a sought after online presence. And so as a part of that, we're using live online courses, we're doing webinars, we're working with our facilitators online. There has been coffee chats and other online models. One of the initiatives that was started over the past year were the state showcases, where the states are kind of showcasing some lessons that they are implementing in their Annie's Project courses. And so that's been really valuable. And as we are continuing to engage in this online space, we're really working hard to identify those best practices and share them with others. So thirdly, a strategic priority is resource development and financial stewardship. We have a lot of ideas here, a lot of creative ideas that I'm looking forward to implementing. But, you know, some of our core funding still comes from corporate sponsors. For example, we've been really fortunate to work with Farm Credit Council for many years. That's been a really important partnership. But we've had a lot of other great partnerships as well. So that continues to be important. We're also looking at different types of USDA grants. Annie's Project, both Annie's Project National and the individual states have accessed a lot of USDA grants over the years. And it's just been truly valuable. So I think we're getting a little more creative and looking at some other types of USDA funding that we can bring to help support Annie's Project. So, and lastly, I wanted to mention that we are building towards a strategic priority of serving those international audiences, which Ruth mentioned. And so I'm really excited to see us working towards that as well.
The numbers may be a little out of date at this point, but when you think about internationally, the role that women play in agriculture, it's so much broader than in the US, right? I think something like 36% of farmers in the US are women, but outside of the US, I've heard numbers upwards of, I think, 68%. And it's just so vastly different, but essential, right? To feeding families, feeding communities, and that's what makes the world go round. Okay, so Amber, as Madeline said, thank you for your involvement and guidance on the advisory committee. I think having different perspectives, generationally, where you sit in the country, the space in agriculture that you serve is so very important to organizations like Annie's, and it's a great thing that you're there. So I'd love to hear your vision of what Annie should and could be like in 10 years from now. What does that look like?
Thanks, Marji. I would echo a lot of what Madeline said. I think partnerships will be a key to where Annie's project goes into the future. Partnerships with industry to continue on some of those topics that Ruth had talked about, both financial capacity and then human resource capacity. Partnerships with our alumni, continuing to engage with them. Like Karisha said, 19,000 women. That is a whole lot of lives that have been changed. How can we continue to partner with them so they can pass along, like she had talked about, and continue to share with folks? And then diversity, I think, is a big portion of Annie's project that we'll continue to see, to think about, and to really act on into the future. So diversity, and hey, we have this new generation that's coming up and into agriculture. How do we work with them and meet their needs? And Ruth hit the nail on the head. Social media is a huge part of Gen Z and a much larger portion of the next generation, Gen Alpha, that is to come. So how do we meet them where they are? Farmers, despite the stereotypes, are very tech savvy. This next generation is going to be the most tech savvy of our farmers. They're going to be working with the most complex equipment. So thinking about how we meet those needs and then how we market to them as well. Social media has a huge impact. I'll just give an example here. In the potato industry, best thing that could ever happen to them. And you might say, well, what does that mean? Traditionally, 1 in every 5 media pieces written through, say, news networks or traditional newspaper media for potatoes is negative. Online, through social media this year, for every 17 pieces about potatoes, only 1 is negative. So social media can really have a huge advantage. And then when we continue to think along this diversity thread, reaching out to our urban communities, reaching out, we see a higher percentage of BIPOC people that are in those urban agriculture communities. So understanding their needs and how do we continue to provide and serve for them. And then thinking along this diversity route too, diversity across our country, diversity across different types of crops. We've been having lots of discussions. Annie's project is putting in the work to make sure that that curriculum works for farmers where they're at, to make sure that those facilitators have the resources that they need and are able to tailor it to their groups. I'm here out in Washington. I'm on the far west side of the country. So, you know, when we're thinking about talking about financials, for apples, it might look a little different than if you're doing a row crop operation in the Midwest. And Annie's project is making sure that that curriculum can be tailored. And I think we'll continue to see that as we move forward, that curriculum making sure that it is both able to focus on the core of risk management and those foundations, but also having the flexibility and the empowerment that facilitators, that those folks that are part of those conversations can tweak it and can say, hey, this is great, these foundations stay here, and you know, we're gonna slightly, like Cassie had said, take that marketing from grain marketing to marketing in general. So lots of opportunities as we look forward for Annie's projects, and I think we're well positioned to be able to really capitalize on those. opportunities. So like I said, partnerships I think will be a big thing. Diversity will continue to be things that we think about and that I would like to see as Annie's project progresses over the next 20 years.
Thank you. I love your passion and what you bring to this. It's important. You know, the sky is truly the limit. And I think when I step back and think about women's education in any aspect, right? But in this case, farming, having that business and financial acumen is essential. It's essential to the success of the business, and women will continue to put themselves in not just support roles, but in, I said the word just, I shouldn't have said just. Support roles are major, they're major, right? Nothing gets done without all of us, right? But continuing to step into those business leadership roles, right? And taking a seat at the table like Julie and showing that you've got that business and financial acumen, and Annie's project is significant there. So we've had some questions come in and I think they've been answered in the chat, but as we talked about resources, one of the questions that came in is, does Annie's pursue grants or things like that? And there are a couple significant grants that Annie's has pursued and engages in. One of them is near and dear to my heart, and that's risk management. And I'll take it a step further, and crop insurance. That is the safety net, right, for farmers and ranchers across the country. And Annie's has engaged with RMA as an example, which is part of USDA that delivers the crop insurance program. And so I see Annie as being nimble and looking at those different ways to participate and bring women into that conversation. So that for any of you who are wondering that, there's more in the chat about that. Now is your opportunity to send in any other questions that you might have for any of the specific panelists, but in the meantime, while we're waiting to see if anyone else has anything, I would love for each of you to describe in one word, what does Annie's project mean to you? Okay, Ruth, I see you first. What's your word?
Okay, Marji, I'm green personality. I take in lots of data. I need to take time to process. I'm going to call pass, and someone else around me can take that question, but I will have an answer here after I think about it.
And it's okay if we have the same questions, but I see things coming in on the chat. Jennifer, I don't want to destroy your last name, Brosius. Support, absolutely. We've heard about that here. Isabel, opportunity, right? Madeline, what's your word?
One thing I was thinking about was life-giving.
Absolutely. Cassie, do you have a word?
Energizing.
Amber?
Strength.
Karisha? Karisha might be frozen. So, you know, all of these words
Am I
are...
back?
Oh, yeah, you're back.
Oh,
you're back.
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm not sure what happened there. I'm going to go back to our 20th anniversary conference we had in October, and cultivating was one of the words that we used in our conference title. And so when I think of Annie's project, I think of cultivator.
And I have thought of my word. I'm gonna fall on the line here of Jennifer, who picked support, because when Annie's project came out of my head, I used my mother as the muse, and something that she really needed in her life, that as a kid watching her, that she didn't have a lot of, was support. And so I'm going to go with support on this one.
I like that. Support for each other, support
Yes,
for
yes.
the knowledge that we can transfer amongst each other, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Would anybody like to bring up anything else in the conversation before we start to wrap?
I just want to say thank you to all of you. Cassie, you amaze me. Amber, oh my goodness, just the level of involvement and intelligence here, it just warms the cockles of my heart.
I think we need to make Kill the Just a slogan, Amber.
Yes, I love that. Did you borrow that,
Absolutely.
Amber, from somebody else, or is that an original?
I think I may have heard it somewhere else.
Okay, we gotta be careful. We gotta trace it back.
Yeah, well, this has been a great discussion. It would be super fun to just do this again next month.
Absolutely. It's filled my cup up. Thank you for sharing your stories, your input, your guidance. With the group here, Annie's project has a bright future, and agriculture needs every single one of us to succeed, right? There's a lot of people to feed, and that is an uphill climb across the globe. And so what everybody brings to agriculture is important, and I strongly believe in the networks and education that women will continue to need to be a strong part of that. And so I'm excited to see where Annie's project goes today and in the future as we look to the next 20 years.
And Marji, I want to say one big thank you to you as well through your program and FarmHer, how you took the stereotypic image and just blew it up with your fantastic photography and your videography. So thank you too for what you've done for women.
Thank you. Madeline, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, that's exactly where I was going to go too. Thank you so much for moderating today, Marji, and thanks for all you've done for Women in Ag through FarmHer and through being a board member of Annie's project. We really appreciate you.
I'm in good company. Happy to be here. Thank you. And thanks to the audience as well. Doris or Karisha, I don't know if you have anything else before we close.
Just thank everybody for coming today and all of the panel members. It was wonderful to be on the panel with you and to hear your stories.
And I'll concur. Thank you. And what an awesome panel. Kudos to all of you, but kudos to everybody out there, all the attendees, all the passion and support of Annie's over the years. And of course, to our founder and visionary, thank you so much. None of us would be here without you and what you brought together. So thank you all. And just to note that, yes, maybe the party for the 20th is ending today, but we have some things that will continue on in 2024. We hope that you'll be back. We'll have showcases. We have some new programming coming up. So we hope that you will be visiting us again and excited to see what 2024 brings.